Shalom. I'd like to start out by giving all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, or Kakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of the Great Millstone. Shalom to the elect of Israel. This is the Mayim in Atlanta. And I've got this article pulled up on End Time Headlines. Came out November 4th, 2025. And it says food banks across the country are being overwhelmed by a tsunami of hungry people. And as we know, the government's been shut down. So there are people that aren't receiving paychecks, and it's been a few pay periods at this point of not receiving paychecks. And then also there's a stoppage on EBT and food stamps and just benefits in general. And then also the economy's doing pretty terribly. So there have been a massive amount of layoffs as well. There are people out of work and not getting fed like they'd like to, so they're turning to food banks. It says its grocery prices have risen. Demand at food banks throughout the country has surged to very alarming levels. At the end of 2024, I wrote about how demand at food banks had risen to record levels all over the United States. That's at the end of 2024. Things have changed a lot since this new president has gotten in. Right from the start, we're putting troops out on the streets because they're expecting chaos to arrive, and empty stomachs does produce chaos. But he says, unfortunately, demand has continued to rise in 2025, and now the government shutdown has shifted America's hunger crisis into overdrive. Millions of very hungry people are showing up at food banks looking for something to eat, and resources are being stretched to the limit. There's no area of the nation that is not being affected by this crisis. For example, it is being reported that food banks in Iowa are experiencing record demand during this government shutdown. Food pantries across Iowa are seeing record demand as families wait for the federal government to restore their food assistance benefits. So what does record demand look like? Well, at one food bank in Iowa, they're serving about twice as many people as usual. While families wait, many are turning to food pantries for help. At Waypoint Resources in Walkie, the line for food stretched out the door Monday. We just opened at noon today, and already in the first hour, we saw double the number of people that we normally see, said Melissa, Center's executive director. We're seeing similar things happen in other parts of the nation too. Southwest Texas, one network of food banks, is now serving nearly 170,000 people per week. Skipping down, going into these numbers, but yeah, you can tell with the way things are going within the world, people are hungry and they're looking for any sort of assistance that they can find. Going down here, it says in Detroit, dozens of cars were lined around the block yesterday morning. On Detroit's east side, dozens of cars lined around the block at Forgotten Harvest, Jermaine Jackson Academy drive-through food pantry. Monday morning, it was the location's first time operating since SNAP funding lapsed this month. Kim Lewis, who runs the site, said her group faced cold weather and rain to serve more than 250 families. The higher demand was clear. Volunteers described cars waiting along Gradit Avenue hours before the pantry's opening. 40 minutes after the site closed, the group was still loading up cars. But yeah, we are coming into the plagues of the Lord, and he's doing it through the hand of the Edomites, so-called Caucasians or so-called white people, including the tiny toppers, those people that are in the land calling themselves the Lord's people. He's using them to bring about their own collapse, because they think they're going to collapse the system and then rise from the ashes and start a new system so that they can stay in power. But he's letting them destroy their own system and put themselves into destruction, because they really think through this chaos that they're bringing, that order can be established, which it will be established, but it's not the order they're thinking of. It'll be the order of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. But hunger is a great motivator of people, and they can also use the people's hunger to influence them to receive that MOTB, the RFID micro CHIP, when the time comes. But yeah, they are pushing people into a corner, with their backs into a corner, via this economy tightening, and via food insecurity. But it's all just the end of Esau's world. This is 2nd Esdras 16 and verse 14. It says, "Behold, the plagues are sent and shall not return again until they come upon the earth." And just as the Lord plagued ancient Egypt, he's going to plague modern day spiritual Egypt, which is America. And really, all of the world. All of these plagues come onto the entire earth. It says, "The fire is kindled and shall not be put out till it consume the foundation of the earth." See, the whole earth. But the majority of the plagues will be here in Babylon the Great, because this is a place of high sin, and their influences reached around the earth, and they touched the apple of the Lord's eye, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. There's a huge price to pay for that. And so we're in the time where that price is about to be paid. It says, "Like as an arrow which is shot of a mighty archer returneth not backwards, even so the plagues that shall be sent upon earth shall not return again." We're watching it. We are in the beginning of sorrows and death and great mourning. And it's not going to let up. It's only going to get worse and worse and worse, all the way until the fire of the chariots and fire from the chariots and the fire from the nuclear missiles that are going to be launched from this nuclear war we're coming into, all the way until that happens. And at that point, salvation will be achieved as well, because the Lord's going to save his elect, his remnant, from that destruction, and then a new heaven and a new earth will be here. New order will be here. It says, woe is me, who will deliver me in those days? Because these are extremely scary times. And even a man of the Lord like Esdras was concerned about it. This is a time of trouble such as never been before. Verse 18, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine. And you can see this is the beginning of famine. It's a great lack of bread. It's not that everybody is going hungry, but a good portion of people are lacking in the bread department, lacking in the food department. And great death. We hadn't even gotten there. We're seeing judgments happen on the earth, but this great death, it says blood will be up to the horse's bridle. There's a lot of blood that is going to be shed. A lot of that's going to come in the different wars that are going to take place and skirmishes. There's going to be civil wars and socioeconomic wars, and then ultimately the World War, Great World War III. And that'll be a ton of death. They could possibly release a pestilence or something. We will see. But great death is on the horizon. Since the beginning of wars, you got World War III. We're coming into nation versus nation, kingdom versus kingdom. You got civil wars. And the powers shall stand in fear. The elite are trembling. The beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? We turn to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. That's the only way out of this, is through Yahweh Yahushai. He is salvation. That's how we achieve it. That's what we do. It says, behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. And you see these people lacking in the bread department, going to food banks, but they're still not turning to the true power. That's why these minor scourges are here. for you to turn to the true power, to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. But people are still unmoved. They're hungry, but they're still not moved to turn to the true power and to try to get into actual order. It says, but for all these things they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges. They're probably in the food bank, but still partying on the weekends. Behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon earth that they shall think themselves to be in good case. Because people are still eating, people are still working, going to work, marrying, giving in marriage. Things are still operating as usual. It's just a little tighter. And so they still don't see that this is the actual end. It says, and even then shall evils grow upon earth. Sword, modern day sword. Really, all of modern technology, military technology, can be equated to the sword. Even the pen can be the sword. Anything that could be used to do hurt. Famine. We could see that famine is increasing. These food banks are overwhelmed. Or the lack of bread is increasing. I wouldn't say we're actually in a famine yet, but there is a great lack of bread and great confusion. And we are in the city of confusion. And they've spread their wine throughout the earth, so the whole earth is in confusion. It says, for many of them that dwell upon earth shall perish of famine, and the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy. And it's better to die of the sword than of famine, because you just pine away, as the scriptures say. Second Esdras, going back a chapter, Second Esdras 15 and 19, it says, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread, and for great tribulation. It says there shall be no more work for Egypt. So how are people going to eat? And that's just going to create chaos. And the elite want that chaos so that they can bring their digital order, the MOTB, that micro CHIP, they want to put into every individual on this earth. They want that, the disorder, to bring their order, but it's not going to happen. But this chaos is going to happen. We're watching the beginning of great sorrows and mourning. We're watching the plagues come onto this earth. And so turn to Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai to get out of this. So, Lord willing, that was edifying. I'd like to give all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai Bahasham Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of the Great Millstone. Shalom to the elect of Israel. Shalom.